Hello everybody, it's 9:30. It's June, Thursday night, for 1 hour only. As you can probably see, I've got a guest tonight from Upsticks, Chris. Chris will be talking about, obviously, Spanish Residency and about cars. But anyway, before I go into introducing our special guest, I just want to thank our friends Lobster. That I can't put up. Anyway, got another thing I'll have to explain, guys. Now, obviously, over the year, I've been paying for the StreamYard thing, and this year I just haven't got enough money at the moment. So I'm on the basic passage, so I can't put your comments up, but I can read your comments as well, guys. But I'm going to be honest tonight, guys, because we've got so many questions already. If you are going to be asking any questions in the comment section, if we got time, I will try and ask them. But I've got a horrible feeling that we're going to run out of time. Just the questions that we've already got. Chris has got a lot to. He's got a lot to talk about, really. About he wants to give obviously a good question, good reply to the question. So just to let you know that what I will try and do if we do run out of time, because that hour and a half goes quick, guys. So I will try and take notes in the comment section. So don't think I'm ignoring you. I'm not. But anyway, I just want to thank Lobster. Now, Lobster is doing a good deal at the moment. And you can check out their site. And I think I'll put a link below the video for that. Currencies Direct. Got to thank them very much as well. There's also a link there which you can go on to see what the currency rate is at the moment. So, something to do. Now, the coffee fund. Now, last month, got nothing. I did meet a couple of people around Camposol that I must appreciate that did buy me a cup of coffee. But this month, wow, I did have a lot of people. So I've got to say a big thank you to Robert, top man, for putting into the coffee fund. Martin, and he said it's coffee time again. Top man, great supporter. James, a little something for the coffee fund, Sean. Very much, James. We really appreciate the blog and all the hard work you producing content. Regards, Nurse Jim, the family. Well done, guys. Very much. Fem, another top man. And I know he's watching the coffee fund, and finishing it off with Jason. Keep up the good work. Most guys, it really helps because obviously some of the things I have to do does cost me money, especially going out with fuel and equipment and that. Now, if you wanted to buy a T-shirt or a mug, then we got the Expat and Mazaron merchandise. Now, there's a link below this video. There's a link on the Facebook group. Anyway, we got a busy night, so I'm going to go straight in with the introduction video.
Solo un rayo del sol cambia el tiempo en el reloj. Hoy mis deudas reciben perdón. Pago por el show. Me siento feliz porque si no soy yo, pues quién. Todos caen a mi lado. El freno lo arranqué. Me siento feliz porque yo no dudo mi power. Te burlaste de mí, se acabó. Trata de festejar, celebramos el bienestar. Tantas estrellas brillan, quiero un carro que corra más. Nada me rompe, no, nada me rompe. Trata de festejar, celebramos el bienestar. Tantas estrellas brillan, mi Marte me espera mientras rodea. Nada me rompe, no, nada me rompe. Tantas estrellas brillan, quiero un carro que corra más.
Right, just before I introduce Chris, there's a couple of things I forgot to do. Information sites, guys, most important. Obviously, I can only give you what I've seen in Spain, but you want to check out the proper professional sites. And what I'm on about is the Citizens Advice Spain is a very good internet site to go on to. You can download PDFs off that, and you can even ask questions. Also, can't believe it, the Gov UK site, very important site really, and they've got 3 things on there, which is living in Spain, healthcare, and check your passport. Check your passport is pretty important, because I know a few people that sent their passports off at the moment, and it's taken a lot longer than it usually does. What's that about? I don't know. Plus, obviously, if you're going for visas and that, obviously the Spanish embassy in the UK, or the British embassy here in Spain. And for those people on Camposol, there is a very good internet site called Camposol Crusader.com, which gives you all the proper information, because sometimes on the Facebook groups, it does get a little bit twisted. Right, Camposol news. Right, I did say last month that the Thursday market on Camposol A was coming back. Well, apparently it hasn't happened, and we still don't know. So the market on the Thursday is just not happening at the moment. Why, I don't know. Now, the car boot at Mariano's is back now on a Sunday morning. I think it starts at 9 o'clock just for the morning. The yearly Camposol Fiesta, which has been cancelled the past couple of years because of the COVID, the lady that runs it is packing it in. And unfortunately, there won't be no more Fiestas unless somebody else wants to take it on. But so there will be no more Camposol Fiestas anymore. Bit of a shame. Right, also on A, they're building a new private hospital. They've just started work on it. It's right next to the pharmacy. It's going to be 3 stories high. It's going to be a big building. I'll tell you more about that later on in the year, but they've actually started work on it, which is pretty good to know. Will we be using it? I don't know. The new Crazy Golf on C has been cancelled owing to money, so there won't be that. On B, there's a new paint shop. This has opened up, which is good. The fishing trip shop on B is shut down, and we've been told it's going to be turned into an Irish bar. The Vista Bar on A is shut down, and we don't know what's happening with that. And also, did hear the butcher shop is shut. Now, I don't know what's happening with the butcher shop. As far as I know, I saw some guys going in the other day emptying it out. So anybody knows about a butcher shop, that'd be interesting. We're still getting 20 cents off petrol, which is good. I think that's going up until October. And I think the Spanish government was chatting about knocking some money off the electric and gas bills. But as far as I'm concerned, I haven't seen nothing off my bill yet. But my bill's due in the next couple of weeks. And to finish off, the cash machine or the ATM machine outside the petrol station has been robbed twice now. It's been robbed again. They took the whole box away and not to be seen again. So I don't know if they're ever going to replace that. I would show you photographs, but because I'm on the basic passage now on StreamYard, I can't show you anything like that now, guys, because I ain't got the money. Anyway, now I can introduce Chris.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, Chris. First of all, can I ask you what you're all about?
Yes, so basically, Upsticks, we help people move here to Spain, realise their dream. We do our main business at the moment is non-lucrative visas. Evidently, we do have a forms of residency as well. So we help people with EU on the EU platform, where people have EU family members, and also golden visas as well. But the main, as I said, the main business at the moment would be non-lucrative visas, and evidently with that, we also assist people with registering their cars as well.
And you've got offices all around, well, I won't say all around Spain, but you have got offices around Spain now, haven't you?
Yeah, so we operate around Spain. Since obviously our main headquarters is here in Malaga, but we've now got service specialists and appointment specialists to attend appointments in Valencia, Alicante, the whole of Andalusia and Lanzarote as well.
So, should we get in with the questions then?
Yeah, yes, quite a few to go at.
Yeah. So, number one, I've got Raymond. Can I let you get on with that one?
Yeah, I will do. So Raymond's asked, could you ask the price of transferring an average sized car under 2 litres from UK to Spain in Cáceres? Now, what we have to explain about car registrations is there's quite a lot of factors which are involved in how much it actually costs. So the first thing is if a vehicle's coming from the UK, obviously now that's outside the EU, so it'll have to go through customs. Now, in Spain, each vehicle has a base price, and it's on a document called a BOE, a BOE. Okay. Now that base price is used to calculate all the taxes, and depending on if you're changing residency or not, then you'll pay taxes or not on the import of a vehicle. So it's a little bit difficult to actually give an average cost for a medium-sized vehicle, because without knowing exactly what vehicle it is, we wouldn't know what taxes it were due, and the situation of the person who's bringing the vehicle in, to be honest, because if they're resident or non-resident, it changes. What I can tell you is if you're bringing a vehicle over for change of residency, i.e. you're bringing it with with a residency, and it's got low emissions, it's favourably taxed with a special registrations tax.
What about the electric cars? Is that going to be any different? Or is that just
No, that's good. Yeah, electric cars. So electric cars will be at the point of customs. They'll be valued and charged accordingly. So you'll get to have to pay the 21% VAT and 10% duty if you're not changing residency. But when you come to register them, they obviously don't pay any emissions tax if it's applicable, because they haven't got any.
Good.
Yeah.
Right. So number 2 is from Brian.
So should we do Brian's? I'm buying a holiday home in Condado. If I buy a car, how does tax, insurance, and MOT work? As I've heard some good and bad things, and what's the best option? That's a good question, Brian. Okay, so as a resident or a non-resident, even as he's buying a holiday home, so we're assuming he's non-resident, you can still buy a vehicle, because if he's buying a home, he'll have an NIE number. And the criteria to buy a vehicle basically is that you have an NIE number and a permanent address to register it. The way the insurance works over here is you insure the car and not the person. So depending on what the policy says, or you can have members of your family can drive the vehicle. For example, my policy at home, anybody who's over 25 and had an EU license and UK license for over 2 years can drive it, so that's not a problem. MOT, which is the ITV, the famous ITV here in Spain. Again, the frequency depends on the age of the vehicle. So if you buy a vehicle over 10 years old, it's annually. If you buy it under 10 years old, then new vehicles don't have their first ITV for 4 years. It's 2 years. It's every 2 years up to 10 years after that. And I'm sure you've been to an ITV yourself, Sean, and you know what they're like. It's slightly different in the UK. It's like a conveyor belt, isn't it?
I mean, to be honest, I thought it'd be a bit of a doddle, but they really inspect the car. I thought, oh, they just let any old wreck through, but they do a thorough test. And what I do like about it, you can actually go through the test with them. You can either hand them the car, or you can go on the conveyor belt, as you said. And they do put it for a pretty structural, checking everything. I was pretty shocked. But what I do like about it, if they do find a problem, as long as it's not a major problem, they write it down and say, as long as you rectify it for the following year, they haven't got a problem with that. Obviously, if it's something serious, then that would be failed and you have to get it fixed. Saying that about the car, and that a couple of years back, a lot of people here in Spain were told get a padron, because buying a car in Spain, some places you can't buy a car without a padron. And a lot of people that were holiday owners were buying, were getting a padron, and there was no problem. Obviously, since this Brexit thing, and I think this year there's been a couple of people, and even the embassy has told people now, if you have got a padron and you're a holiday owner or whatever, get rid of it, because as far as the police are concerned, you're classed as a resident. Yeah, that's true. You should never. It's either a misunderstanding of the person who's doing the transfer of ownership, because if you're a non-resident, you shouldn't have a padron. You shouldn't be registering a vehicle. The padron is obviously proof of address, but you can also use
a long-term rental contract or property deeds with a DGT for proof of address. So, you know, as holiday homeowners, you shouldn't be using a padron, because it can be, it's the age-old story. You know, if you haven't got residency beyond your padron, are you classed as a fiscal resident or not? But, you know, whatever happens, if being on the padron is for people who are resident here, so, you know, you shouldn't be. So, and it can, as you say now, after Brexit, be considered a form of residency and get into trouble.
Yeah, yeah. So number
Proof of
3.
you being here, even if you haven't got residency.
Number 3, Steve.
Yeah,
Well,
number 3, Debbie
I don't
Shaw.
know.
I don't know Debbie Shaw.
No, no. I mean, she's obviously lives there on Camposol, so I don't think you would know her anyway. She's obviously somebody like you that sorts out people's for residency and things like that.
Yeah.
So not sure she does. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what he's trying to get at is she similar to you, but obviously because you don't know her, you wouldn't know really what she does. But I presume, obviously, because you do residency, but obviously it's different now because most people that apply for a non-lucrative have to do it back in the UK for a start. But I know you can put them through the process of it and also tell them that can they go for a non-lucrative, mainly because you know they've got the money, the insurance and things like that. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know Debbie, but I'm sure she, I don't know. Or maybe I'll research Debbie and get in contact. So the next question, is it Tony's?
Yeah.
How much does it cost to get a non-lucrative visa? Is it better to use an agent to help? And how much money do they charge? Also, how long does it take? Good question. Well, evidently, I mean, you can try and do a non-lucrative visa yourself. Obviously, all the information's out there. There's a lot of information on the internet. And, you know, we had a question the other day. Someone said, well, if you publish all this information on your website about the processes, or how do you make any money? But well, the days have gone where people sell information to people. The information is out there. It's the internet. It's the implementation that you need. Yeah. So all the information is out there. A lot of it can be confusing. And the reason people contract agents and companies like ourselves is to assist them in implementing everything and making sure they do everything within the time scales at the right time, and also obviously qualifying them and making sure that there's no objections to the visa. So should you use an agent? I'm evidently going to say yes, aren't I? You know, so
Yeah, of course you are.
To that question, how much does it cost? Well, the non-lucrative visa in the consulate costs £525 per applicant. You're looking at probably an extra 150 each with translations and apostilles, depending on what your situation is. So it does vary depending on what your situation is, whether you've got marriage certificates, whether you need birth certificates, where you get your medical certificate from. If it's from the UK, well, it needs translating, and an apostille. If it's from Spain, then it doesn't. And then as for an agent, well, we charge €595, which includes VAT and the stage 2 tax, which I think I'll cover in one of these questions in a minute. Per person we charge that, and that's for assistance at both ends. Most agents, I think, charge around that fee, but so you're looking at around €1,300 probably per person for the first year.
Well, and obviously that was all in pounds, wasn't it? And also, if it gets turned down, it's non-returnable, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult to get. When I say it's very difficult to get turned down, now if you're using someone to go through the process, then the due diligence has to be done up front. So there's the non-lucrative visa. There's 3 main red flags, which is criminal records, healthcare, and the financial side of things. And we always go in with those first. If you qualify on those fronts, then you have to look at everything else. When you get to the consulate aren't there just to grab the money. They do a a check of all the documents. And although I understand there's probably people that have been rejected once they've actually made the payment, most of the time the consulates would highlight anything they think would cause a rejection.
That's good. So Haley.
Haley, is it correct you need X amount of savings to be able to obtain the visa? I had two sisters that lived in Kilroy for many years back in the 90s, but so much has changed. It has. It's definitely changed since the 90s, but definitely the early noughties when I moved here. But yeah, so you have to have EPREM is a calculation used here in Spain, which dictates a lot of things here in Spain, like various pension payments and benefit payments, and it's a level set by the government every year when they do the budget. And you have to have, for an individual applicant, 4 times that amount, which comes to 27,792 euros. We always say 28 grand per applicant. Initial applicant, beneficiaries, they have 100% EPREM added on top of that. So if it's a spouse, then it goes up by about another 8,000 euros. So yeah, there is a calculation that you need to bear in mind for the visa. She asked a good question here. Savings. It can either be passive income, savings, or a combination of both.
When you say passive income, what's that mean, Chris?
So passive income would be not working. So you're not exercising any sort of work activity. So passive income would be if you're receiving a pension, that's evidently passive income. Well, it's income from not working. They class it as passive income because you're not working to gain that. You've worked very hard to get a pension, but now you're getting that on a pension structure. If, for example, you have a rental property in the UK that you're letting out and you're coming to Spain to live, you can use that income as part of a proof of passive income. If you're earning any sort of interest or dividends, now you have to be very careful with dividends. I'll explain in a bit, but anything that you're getting which isn't work income, you can't work on a non-lucrative visa in the UK or in Spain.
Yeah, I mean that. I think we got a question later on about that once they done their first year here is on a non-lucrative. Is that in one of the questions?
Yeah, it's actually, I think one of the questions is from speaking. I've heard that Spanish solicitor, you can go self-employed after year 1, and then you don't require the second year to be double the finances, which I think we've got a question regarding the renewal anyway, so we'll go into that now. But the answer to that is once your visa expires or you're coming to the expiry and you're in the renewal period of your visa, then you can renew your residency in any legal format you like. You don't have to stick to that same, as long as you qualify, that's fine. In terms of self-employed, to be honest, we don't support self-employed visas at the moment, so I wouldn't know I know the requirements, we just don't support them. In terms of you don't need double in the bank, if you're going to a self-employed visa, you would still need to prove that there's enough money to support whichever business you're going to be doing. It's not just a case of going autonomo. So I'd say you probably would still need the same amount of money as a non-lucrative. So yeah. We're getting people updating visas who came in on a non-lucrative visa and then now have got an Irish passport. The non-lucrative expired and they're getting residency using the Irish passport. So we're seeing a lot. Even it's difficult for immigration as well, so I haven't seen these sort of circumstances, but there are people renewing the non-lucrative visas for other forms of residency. Yeah,
because another thing, because we got quite a few people here now that are on non-lucrative visas and their first year is up, and I'm right in thinking they've got to reapply for their TIE card, haven't they?
That's right. So you apply initially to immigration. So you have the 2-month period before your card expires, and then 3 months after that. So there's a 5-month window you have to apply to immigration for a document called a resolution, which is the approval for the new TIE card. Then once you get that, you have to take your old TIE card, your resolution, and then change it for a new one.
Because I mean, the guys that I know, they weren't given any information when their first year is up who they go to obviously renew the process. So would it be something like you, Chris, that they could go to reapply? Yeah,
Yes, yeah, we can do that. The process itself is it's extremely similar to when people came within the withdrawal agreement, i.e. the platform's the same, where we have to present the documentation for the pre-approval. The approval comes through the same, and then obviously they've got to register TIE card. So the process is very similar to how it was when people were doing the pre-Brexit applications.
Right. So I've got number 6 now.
Yeah.
Steve. Yeah.
Steve's question is a very good one, but I could do a whole video on this.
You do. Well,
could Chris also go through the order and timeline process for applying for the NLV, the order for documents needed to be done in? Right. So what we'll say, I mean, what we can say to that is that we normally, the first thing we do is find out from a client what their ideal date of entry into Spain with a visa in their hand is. Okay. So basically, if you take that date where someone wants to be in Spain with a visa in their hand, you want to be looking at an appointment month to 6 weeks before. All right, because the visas are taking around a month to come through. So legally, they have 90 days to respond to a visa request. They're taking around a month. And you want to start your paperwork around 6 weeks before that date. So the time it takes is around 3 to 4 months. The reason we say start the paperwork 6 weeks to 2 months before the visa appointment date is because there's certain documents, which we'll go through now, which only last for 90 days. They have an expiry date on them. So if, for example, you get those documents and then you have a problem and you have to put your appointment back a week, 2 or 3 weeks, they're still going to be in date. So you never really want to start your documents 3 months before your expected appointment date, because you run the risk that if there's any unforeseen circumstances, they could run out. In terms of the order in which you want to do your documents, well, you've obviously got you've got a lot of things you have to do, like a criminal records check, a medical certificate, and if you need to get duplicates of your marriage certificate, well, they all want to be done first, because those documents need to be translated and be given the apostille stamp. And then the documents that you want to be looking at doing closer to the time of the appointment is the proof of your financial stability. You're using bank statements, for example. They need to be taken out as close to the appointment as possible, as recent as possible. And evidently, your health insurance is very important, because there's some common misconceptions on that, but the health insurance has to be in place for a minimum of 12 months from the date of the appointment or from the expected date of entry into Spain. So you don't want to start that before your appointment. So obviously that comes towards the end of the process.
I've heard with the health insurance, some people were saying that instead of having a 12-month one, they're having a 15-month one. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that happened last year. I mean, we've had so many changes in the requirements and the understanding of what they wanted. And we had some last week where they've changed the S1 requirements, and also London now changed how they send the passports out. And last year, what happened with the healthcare was a lot of the consulates were saying, well, we need it for 12 months from the date of the appointment, which was impossible, because a lot of companies only start the first of the month. And then the companies were like, well, but if you start it on the first of the month, your appointment's on the 15th, you're not going to have a full 12 months. So a lot of people started issuing longer policies. There's one company in particular that started issuing 15, 16-month policies. They could start the policy when people went to the appointment, and then it would still have 12 months left on it. It's not needed now, you can, as long as you stick to the policy, has to be either 12 months from the appointment date or from the date you expect to enter Spain. That's fine. They have been used and they're not wrong, but it's not needed now.
Right, that's good. Right,
In our experience, for the way that we operate, we haven't had to use them.
Yeah. So number 7, I've got BC68 because he didn't give a name, so it's like a code, and he's asking about transfer a car from Ireland.
Yeah, so transfer the car from Ireland. Yes, obviously Ireland's still in the EU, doesn't have to go through customs, and exactly that. It depends on the value that is given to the vehicle. You then there's so you've got 3 things with a car. So you've got the tax, the technical, and the traffic code. Yeah, the tax depends on the age, emissions, and initial value of the vehicle. The technical part of it depends whether it's an EU conformed vehicle or not, and then you can only bring in certain vehicles for change of residency if they don't have the correct conformity or the correct details on the original documentation, which is a common fault with Irish vehicles, because they don't always have the conformity number on the section K of the documentation. We find that all the time. It's an absolute nightmare. And then the emissions as well. The emissions tax is dependent on the section V7 of any European document. So basically, what BC68 is saying, it is dependent on the value of the car, the engine size, and the emissions.
Yeah, too technical for me about cars.
It could. I mean, you can spend a lot of time just doing a quote for a vehicle registration.
Yeah,
believe it or not.
Yeah.
So, number 8, is it?
Yeah.
Does an S1 cover the health insurance required to get the NLV, or does the S1 cover a younger partner than 66 as well, or not? Plus, would my 25-year-old son need his own health insurance policy to get an NLV? He still lives with us, from Steve. Okay, yeah. So an S1 form will cover you and your spouse in Spain. They've recently changed the requirements now, where they want us to pre-register the S1 in Spain before people go to their consulate appointments, which isn't a problem. It can be done. But you won't be able to close that registration until you've actually got your padron and your TIE card once you get here. It's a little bit of a chicken and egg, stupid situation, to be honest, but we just have to adhere to the paperwork they want us to give them. And then, 25-year-old son would need his own health insurance policy to get an LV.
I'm right in thinking, I think the way I'm reading it there was, with the S1, obviously his partner's not of pension age, but she can be off the piggyback, if you get what I mean, isn't it? Because
that's correct. Now you have to be slightly wary of if you're married or not married.
Oh,
yeah. So if you're not married, you can still get an S1 for your partner, and that may get you through the initial visa application. But then when you come to register here, the Social Security want to see a marriage certificate if you're a beneficiary of someone else. So what we've got to remember is, in Spain, evidently, each Social Security office is ran by different people. So it is a national Social Security, but like immigration and like everything, they have their own interpretation of the rules. So certainly here in Malaga, it's quite hard if you haven't got a marriage certificate to register the S1, but you might actually be able to get it if you're married from the UK. So that's where that might come unstuck.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing, which is quite hard, isn't it? There's no set rule here in Spain. Every region has a different way of dealing with things, don't they? You know, like with tax, and obviously some places, especially here, to get a padron, we actually have to go down to the town hall. But I think in some places in Spain, you can do it online. But here, you've virtually got to go down to the town hall and pay your €2. And it's very hard sometimes trying to explain that, you know, Padron here is different to like obtaining a Padron, say down in Malaga way.
Yeah,
That makes
yeah. I
sense?
mean, every area has its nuances, and you know, like between the consulates when we're doing the applications, yeah, they said at one point. Now, I would have to say the UK consulates are a lot more generalised in their understanding of what we have to present. But last year was just crazy. You know, last year what was valid in Edinburgh wasn't valid in London. It wasn't
Yeah.
valid somewhere else. So yeah. Sorry, I'm just going to have to plug you in there, Sean. Sorry about that. There we go.
Plug me in.
And the next one, where were we?
Yeah, next one's number 9, Haley.
Haley, question. I'm hoping for a retirement, hoping in time to move to Spain. What visa is required to do this, and how long does that last? Non-lucrative, what we've been talking about, that's the visa you need. Will it have to be renewed every year or 3 to 5 years? So the renewal period is you'll get 12 months initially, you then renew for a further 24 months, and then you renew for a further 24 months after that. So until you get to 5 years, and at the end of 5 years, you then renew for a more permanent residency at the end of that. Also, just wanted a little part-time job to keep busy. You can't have a part-time job on a non-lucrative visa, I'm afraid. It doesn't allow you to work, so you'd have to wait for your 5 years to get a part-time job. Yeah.
I would imagine the way she's saying that is probably means that she probably hasn't got enough money to live off, because of obviously the expense of having so much money in your bank account for the 5-year period.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, you've got to look at the five. I mean, when we're sort of doing the due diligence on a case, we have to look at the 5-year period, the longevity. What are people's objections? Do they want to live in Spain for the rest of their lives? That seriously changes the structure, you know. Or they're getting the initial visas, fine, but if you're talking to somebody and they're saying, look, I just want to do discovery year, and we might decide afterwards if we're going to stay or not, and we've got X amount, then we can, you know, just say, okay, that's fine, just go for it. Some people who want to live in Spain for the rest of their lives, for example, you've got to look at maybe a rise in EPREM, which could put the price of the renewals up. You know, we've got, and you've got to really look at it quite sensibly, because also, obviously, if you haven't got the income, you would have to have the savings. A lot of people may create a tax liable event by becoming a resident in Spain and having to sell a property in the UK to fund the visa, you know. So there's quite a lot to look at when, if your intention is to stay here the whole time. That's that. And that, going back to the previous question, that's why when talking to somebody, an agent, to do it, that's really what you want to be talking about, not just that first year, about the whole thing, you know.
right.
So
Number 10. Number 10's a massive question, or questions.
where do we start, Brian? Where do we start?
Yeah, I was supposed to start off in the first couple of lines, really.
Can I start by saying good night to my kids, because I'm not going to see them tonight, and I know they're watching. Because it's 10 o'clock, right? Night, Ral and Isla, if you go to bed, just about to say hello. I know you're watching, so I just wanted to say. Obviously, my wife as well is watching, but I did want to say good night to my kids, so I'm not going to see them. So there you go. Sorry about that. It's quite say evening.
Right. That's right.
So Brian, hi Sean, brilliant news. You're having Chris on your show from Upsticks. Chris is very genuine, honest, and knowledgeable man. It should be a very interesting show. Cheers, Brian. Thanks for that. Cheers.
Top man.
Top man. A few questions for you to consider asking him below. When, how, where does an applicant submit their NLV visa application? So you need to submit your visa application at your nearest Spanish consulate, wherever you are in the world. How, we've been talking about that. And when, well, really, you want to be submitting it any time up to 3 months before your intended arrival date into Spain.
When you say Spanish consulate, Chris, so are you saying that they can do it in Spain?
No. So
it's got to be done in the UK or wherever.
Or wherever you live. So we've done them in Paris, Kuala Lumpur, New Zealand, Philippines currently, Los Angeles, so wherever, if you're a third country national, you retire in Spain, wherever you live currently as a resident is where you need to go. If you have resided in a different area within those 5 years of you making the application, then what changes is you have to take a criminal records check from that country as well. So say, for example, you apply in Kuala Lumpur, but you lived in France 2 years before that, well, you'd have to get the 3 years criminal records check from Kuala Lumpur and your previous check from France. If you've lived somewhere for 5 years, you wouldn't have to do
that. This question he asked has come before, and this is how long does it take to process the visa? I mean,
we explained that, didn't we?
Yeah, we talked about that one. And then he goes on about if a family are applying to do all they need, their own separate appointment in front of the consulate interviewer, and what an applicant is it for a child. So, I mean, do children need to go and have an interview?
They don't get interviewed, but you need to take, everybody goes with you because the passports get verified, they are who they are. Each application is dealt individually, i.e. assessed individually, albeit that there may be one main applicant and the rest of the family are beneficiaries of that person. Yeah, but all your applications should always be in separate piles, and the person will be verified separately. And what we always say is, and you find, I'm always happy when people say to me, "Oh, I've come away with a lot of paper," so that's fine. If you've come away with a lot of paperwork, that's absolutely fine. If you're missing paperwork, that's a problem. So we always say for people who are beneficiaries of a main applicant, keep copies of that person's financials, for example, because it's normally related to the financials, in each and every file. Yeah, if they throw it away, then great, but make sure the applications are complete.
The next one's a little bit difficult because I suppose what's the total cost and obviously the TIE process. But we had some people last year that I spoke to, and you can speed up the process. If for some, I think what it was their marriage certificate, they had to apply for it from some department. But you can, to make it go faster, I don't know, this is what they told me, that they can speed up the process, but obviously you have to pay a lot more money. So I don't know how you can sort of ask what would be the sort of the total cost of it all. Or what?
Right. So it's so we spoke about the cost a little bit earlier on. So that's fine. But in terms of the speed of it, now I had one client, Barbara. I hope she's watching. And we set out and she set out to break all records, and she managed to turn her paperwork around in 13 days.
13 days.
13 days in fast tracking everything. Apostilles, we got the translations done quickly, and we got the appointment quickly. So I think it was about 20 days between like engaging and going to the appointment. But the ducks all lined up in a row quite nicely. There wasn't too much of a backlog with the FCDO like there is now. The consulate gave us a favourable appointment, which was a cancellation. So you're dependent on so many different things. It's really hard to say how long it takes, but as we always say, give yourself 6 weeks to 2 months beforehand for your appointment, and that gives you that leeway at the other side, just in case you get any delays. So if you push hard, you can normally get it done in a month.
Yeah.
It's not again, but you said, Sean, you can pay for express services. There's companies which can do an apostille in 4 days, or you can send it to the government. At the moment, there's a backlog; they're taking 3 weeks.
Yeah. Well, the other one here, he's got how is the visa collected, and roughly how long will it? How long will it be following the consulate's visit?
So the visa now in the UK, all the consulates in the UK are now posting the visas out to you. So you have to take a prepaid envelope with you, and they post them out so you don't collect them. How long does it take? The quickest ones that we've had them down to 4 days in Manchester once last year, and we've had them up to like 10 weeks in Edinburgh. So that's, again, it depends on everybody's individual situation, really.
And he's also saying, can an agreed consular appointment be cancelled without charge, and such notice be required? So I mean, I would imagine there's going to be a charge, whatever, really, isn't there? If there's
Well, so there's not a charge for booking the appointment. There's not a charge for booking the appointment. Now, that again depends on the consulate. So Edinburgh and Manchester, if we're talking about the UK, Edinburgh, Manchester and London all work differently in regards to their appointment booking system. London has a very good booking appointment system, which was implemented last year after the disasters of last summer. And you can actually use that system up to 4 days up to your expected appointment. You can actually change your appointment on their system without any charge. Manchester, slightly more complicated because they work on an email basis and you're dependent on them actually answering an email, which they do. I'm not taking anything away from them. They do answer emails, but evidently they have a high volume. And Edinburgh is the same, but Edinburgh work on a Google Calendar basis. And once you've got your appointment set with them, it's quite hard to change it.
And then he says, if a family group are applying, do the fees have to be paid separately?
If you mean, do you have to pay a fee for each person? Yes, you do. Yeah. So they get paid separately. Yes, yeah. Essentially, the consulate will charge you and your card, your credit card, the total, but you do have to present different application fee forms for each applicant.
And then his last one, if a family are applying, does the financial requirements for all applicants have to be shown separately, or does the lead applicant have to show the total financial amount to cover all the family?
It can be either or. I mean, you've got when you say family, I don't know if you may mean like so say if we're talking about, say, a nuclear family of, a couple with 2 children under 18, then evidently it's the joint finances of the couple who are also the children will be beneficiary of theirs. If you're talking like a family of adults, for example, so it might be, grandma, granddad, mummy and daddy, then that would depend. That would depend on the dependency of one of those members of the family on the other. So normally for an adult member of family to be a dependent, they have to prove that dependency either financially or even medically. So that's a little bit more complicated. If you're talking about a nuclear family of adults, it really dictates the situation, dictates how you present it. If it's children and a 4.2, then yeah, evidently the lead applicants are the parents.
Right. Well done, Brian.
Did that make sense?
Well, not to me, but I expect hopefully to Brian it has. Okay, moving on to question 11. I honestly don't think we're going to get through them tonight. And guys, I'm so sorry for some of the questions that are in the comments there. Can you see those comments, Chris?
I can't see the comments. I'm sorry.
Oh, right. Okay. Don't worry about it.
I directed a few people to the show tonight. I don't know if they're on or not.
But there's a few comments in the comment section, but unfortunately we're not going to get through what I've already got here. So we're going to go straight into number 11 from Terry, and I'm going to give that to you, Chris, because this is all about the second and third year of the non-lucrative and how much you need. Have you got that there?
Yep. So Terry, question for Chris. Second and third year for NLV, you need about 56k. Yeah. So 56. Yeah, it's 27,900 times 2 is 56. Yeah. Do you need that amount in the bank, or do you just need to show that you will have access to that amount over the next 2 years. Now, this goes back to what I was saying before regarding the having access to that amount, maybe with passive recurring income like a pension, that adds up. Okay, so if, for example, you've got an annual pension of 56,000, if you've got an annual pension of, let's round it to up to 28,000, and those monthly payments equate to the minimum required amount, then you don't need the savings. If you have half of that, then you can top that up with savings. So yeah, you could always subtract, shall we say, from your passive recurring income, from what you need in savings, but the total has to make the minimum required amount for the renewal.
Right. Number 12, Lynette.
Just going back to that point on 11, you're talking about having someone to help you. So like what we do in the circumstances where there's passive recurring and savings is we actually write a letter called an escrito, and with the total at the bottom. So it literally is making it simple for immigration. And I don't mind saying on the show, if people do it themselves, do it, where it says, this is what I get, this is the total, this is the proof. This is what I have in savings, this is the total, this is the proof. Make a sum at the bottom, which should add up to more than the minimum required amount. So anyway, next one.
Yeah. Right. Do you want me to read it out? I'll read it out. Well, our intentions when we retire is to do a 90 days in 180 as we live in the States. I am British and my husband is American. We are thinking about buying and then renting out when we aren't there. Anyone know what the tax implications are for a rental income? Are there leasing companies that would sort all the rental income? I mean, I'm right in thinking, is that going to be on non-lucrative?
No, so their intention is to do 90 days of 180. So they're only going to be they're going to stay within their Schengen allowance and purchase as non-residents. You can purchase as non-resident, and as we know, well, I mean, we don't really deal with tax. We recommend, depending on what situation it is, we recommend people to tax advisors and ex-hestors, etc. But from what I can tell you, my understanding and dealing with things like this is, evidently, if you're a non-resident property owner and you're renting your property out, then you'll still have to pay non-residence tax on that property. And if you're renting it out as a holiday let and there's a leasing company or management company managing that, then I believe you pay that on a quarterly basis rather than an annual basis. So you find yourself a good gestor or contable.
Yeah, I'm right in thinking, because people that's outside the EU, if they're making a living off their rental property, the tax on that's pretty high now. I think it's got 26%. So like you said, you need to get somebody that deals with tax, because they could get hit quite hard, couldn't they, if they're making an income off that?
I think there's so obviously now non-EU citizens, non-residents tax percentage has gone up. Obviously, so I think again, you'd need a tax guy. I'm not a tax guy, but I think it used to be 19 if you're non-resident EU, and I think it's 24 for non-EU. But that is different to the income that you generate off of that. I believe that's taxed differently, but you would really need like definitely a Spanish accountant to see what your situation was, what you're getting, because a lot of it falls down to the value of the property, etc., etc. There's also stuff you can write off as well, and a lot of people make the mistake where when they employ people, they pay them cash, but then you come to do your declaration, you say, well, I spent $1,000 on fixing the window. They're like, well, give me the factura, and you can't prove it. So it's not always the best way to do things, but yeah, that's about as far as I could probably go with that one.
Yeah. Okay. Number 13, Yogi. My question to Upsticks is the process of registering a UK car in Spain. So that obviously that's what you deal with, isn't it?
Yeah. So again, Yogi, thanks for commenting. He's sometimes on my channel as well there. Yeah, so the process is, again, that's another video. That's a massive video. But the process is you have to meet the tax obligations, which could be obviously import tax and duty if you're bringing a car from the UK. When you get here, you've got the special registrations tax or not, depending on if it qualifies for it, and road tax. Then you've got the technical side, which you have to pass, obviously, the technical inspection, and traffic code, which means registering all of that together to then get your final registration. So that's sort of an overview of it.
Right. I think it's going to be the last question now, which is number 14, because it's coming up rather past. And he wants to know, how much does it cost to change the plates on a British car?
I think we sort of covered that before, didn't we? It's impossible to say unless you know the car and the circumstances.
Oh, right, yeah, because it's all to do with the make of car, size of engine, because that's going to differ. So I don't know. The next question looks quite long, Chris.
I live in France. I have a residency card for France. I need to help. I'll do the last one quickly. I need help to get my visa. Do I need to go to Spanish consulate in Paris or the UK? If you live in France, you'll need to go to your nearest consulate in France, basically. And I'm 25, fully qualified builder, want to work in self-employed in France. It depends. If you've got a UK passport, it's going to be extremely difficult. Again, yeah, that's a self-employed visa question, which unfortunately we don't support.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem, isn't it? I mean, there's a hell of a lot of people that want to come here to work, but if they haven't got the money, obviously you've only got 2 visas really, the non-lucrative, which you can't earn a living off, and if you want to spend over 500,000 on a gold visa, then you can work and the family can work, but that's the only 2 options now, isn't it, for non-EU citizens?
It is, yeah. It's you can only in golden visa. Evidently, if you spend $500,000 on a property and you've got family members, then you can work on that or make the correct investment, either $1 million in a bank account here or $2 million in Spanish public debt. But yeah, it's either EU. It's extremely hard to get a self-employed visa. It's possible, but hard if it's the easiest platforms are EU and golden visa.
Yeah. Okay, guys, I'm going to have to say no more questions because it's coming up to our past now, and we've taken up enough time with Chris's valuable time. He's got a party going on down below. He tells me.
We have, yeah. We've got a party going on in the office block, so I might just join that now.
So I want to thank Chris ever so much for coming on the show. Most appreciate it, and and I want to thank everybody that's given questions. What I will try and do is I will go through the comments tonight and write down any questions there, and I will get back to Chris, and we can see if we do another evening. If that's all right with you, Chris.
Yeah, cool. Definitely, I'll be happy to answer the questions that's come up in the chat.
Thank you much. So,
cheers.
As always, I want to thank everybody for popping in tonight. Most appreciate that. Hope you had a good night. I'm just going to find the knocking off bit. I want to thank Chris so much for coming on tonight. So I'm just going to put on